Welcome all you whiskey collectors and fans out there. This is Mark from WhiskyWhistle bringing you whiskey review number 25. A quarter of 100. That's kind of exciting. Thank you so much again. I always say this at the beginning, but I really do thank you for all of the comments and the subscriptions that that all of you watching are taking out and making on the YouTube channel. Don't forget, there's also WhiskyWhistle on Twitter, at WhiskyWhistle, no E on whiskey, and Facebook also just WhiskyWhistle, so you can find some more information from me there. As of yesterday, my 15th review, which was Crown Royal hand-selected barrel, became my most watched review of all in just about a month, so that's quite interesting. It is not the most watched in terms of views. That belongs to a Scotch whiskey brand, one of my favorites. However, Crown Royal took the most number of minutes watched prize away from Scotland, so that's interesting. And that may be partially fueled by Northern Harvest Rye, which everybody in the world is now aware is the best whiskey in the world for 2016. According to Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible. Anyway, if you haven't got any yet, make sure you try to find some Northern Harvest Rye. It's apparently as good as they say, so make sure you look for it. If you can't get it, then talk to your local liquor stores or bars and see if they can get their hands on it. I have some. I can't get it here yet, though, here in Korea. So hopefully I'll find some way to transport one of those bottles over here to Korea. If there's anybody watching who's in Winnipeg that happens to be flying over to Korea soon, please drop me a comment or send me a private message here on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter. Okay? So as a result of the success of the Crown Royal review, and the unavailability of Crown Royal here in Korea, I decided to look for another bottle. Now, the basic Crown Royal is available, and someday I'll do that too. But I did find this one, unfortunately, without the box. It's too bad. This is from the malt shop in Gangnam. I've mentioned them before. To those fine gentlemen, 감사합니다. Thank you very much for having this on the shelf. The only bottle, and they did have the bag, so that's important. The bag is better than the box in this case. So what is this? Let's unbag it. I know all of you YouTubers really love unboxing. Well, how about unbagging? So there we go. Get the dust off. And there you have it. Crown Royal Black. This bottle came out in 2010 in the US, 2011 in Canada, and probably the same year in other markets. So let's, we'll totally unbag it now. There we are. And when you buy Crown Royal, you tend to get a velvet bag. So with the hand-selected barrel, there was a burlap bag. And now this one we get the black velvet bag, well, velveteen. Anyway, so quite nice. What can you do with that? Well, you can keep your whiskey in there. A lot of people like to put marbles in them. So there you go. Okay, I'll just set that off to the side. Maybe that'll stand up there. There. Oh, good. Okay. So, Crown Royal Black. What is this? Why is it called black? It's called black because what they've done is they have extra charred the oak barrels. So they've done a very deep charring. And probably if you watched the Knob Creek review that I did, we talked about charring levels. So it's likely number 4 charring that they're using on the barrels for this, which are sometimes referred to, I believe, alligator char. So it's charred so much that it gets a little bit of cracked appearance on the wood. You know, so you're thinking, boy, wouldn't that make that taste like burnt wood? Well, no, not really. Don't forget, there is a lot of sugar in oak, in wood. Wood contains a lot of sugar. maple syrup from a maple tree, but boy, you could certainly make oak syrup. That could be interesting. I'm sure someone's already done it. Anyway, so what's happening is a lot of the sugars are being caramelized, so you got some caramelization going on that'll add certainly some sort of sweetness. Also, it'll make the whiskey darker. Hence, that's why it's called black. Also, the dark charring works as a bit of a filter. So that will filter out some impurities and is said to maybe provide a little bit of smoothness. And smooth this is. So I'll just bring that nice and close for you to have a look at. Crown Royal Black. The legend continues. Now, what legend, I'm wondering? Well, you know, who knows? This could be in reference to the fact that Crown Royal was sort of very active during the Prohibition era in the U.S. Hence, the legend had begun. It also may refer to the master distiller or master blender. I'm not sure what his actual title with Crown Royal and Diageo is, who is Andrew Mackay. And so he is in charge of whiskey creation over there in Gimli, Manitoba, about 80 kilometers from my house, my parents' house, from where I grew up, making the 13-odd million liters of Crown Royal a year that come out of that factory. Amazing. So that could be why, because he has really sort of been responsible for a bit of a renaissance with this brand. Now, I'm putting the lid on it because I want to get some of the flavors, the scents, to build up in the glass. I'll leave that there for a minute. Anything on this bottle to talk about? Well, let's just read the label. Crown Royal Black, robust, full-bodied, blended Canadian whiskey. The Crown Royal Distilling Company. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. And on the back, the legend continues. A robust whiskey, blend matured to perfection in charred oak barrels and blended at a higher proof for full-bodied flavor. With its deep bourbon notes, rich texture, and signature smoothness, this can only be a Crown Royal whiskey. Drink responsibly, as we all should. And right here on the back, it does actually list Diageo, so that's interesting. It's usually you have to search for the name of the company that owns the whiskey, which is Diageo, the Scottish company. All right, this bag standing up a little better. Okay, so let's get right into the nosing and tasting. If you want to know more about Crown Royal, please do look at my review number 15, which I will include in the in a comment. No, I'll include that in the information about this video, and possibly I'll try to annotate that. Try to get it right there. Now, as you know, there are some ads here in WhiskyWhistle videos, and well, I would like to keep offering quality reviews for you, and I'm hoping that I can offset some of the costs of that through YouTube. Before I smell this, I'm going to include a short ad, and here it is. Okay, so hope that was a reasonable ad to watch. Sometimes they're quite funny, especially if you're in Korea. All right, so let's get into the nosing. You know, you get a bit of an alcohol waft, mainly because I've put a cap on there. But what I'm also getting is a ripe banana note. And I'm going to refer to my tasting notes here so that I don't forget anything. Some very ripe bananas I've written down, as well as vanilla candles. And some spice notes, and I've written here cardamom, nutmeg, and licorice. It does have a sweet nose, in fact. Sweet, spicy, quite a nice thing to smell. So they've used a lot of bourbon style whiskeys in the blend, as well as a lot of rye. So rye and bourbon heavy for this particular blend. Okay, and let's taste that. Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Andrew Mackay. Thank you very much. And starts off sweet, gets a little bit bittersweet as you carry on in your mouth. It also develops dry. It's got a bourbon-esque sort of a flavor, so with some vanillas, honey sort of character. Ripe plums, so a nice juicy fruit note, and that's a little bit, you have to keep it in your mouth a little while. It's also quite warming. That may be because of the higher alcohol volume. I've noticed that with other whiskeys that are above 45 or so, and a dark molasses note as well. I'll taste it one more time and tell you about the finish. The finish is dry and oaky. It's peppery. And neat, it's a little bit short. But the fun begins with this whiskey when you add a little bit of water. So I'm going to put in a good measure of water in there. Put 1.5 little teaspoons, so about 7 or 8 milliliters. Let that roll around in the glass. And we'll let that sit for another minute. What else can I tell you about? Well, I mentioned this was released in 2010 and 45% ABV. So that's great. I mean, that's something that's different about this distillery that they've been changing in the last little while, I believe since Andrew Mackay began working there. So now, some of you may be wondering, what's the difference between 40% and 45%? Are they just throwing some alcohol in there, or what? Because we kind of think of 40% as being the baseline, and it is the baseline legally. However, the baseline, let's look at the stills. When the new make, the white spirit, is coming out of the still, it will typically be between low 60s and up into the 90 as far as the ABV. Low 60s for pot stills, and you can get into the 90s with column stills, and it also depends on the sugar content of the mash and how much it has been fermented with yeast. There's a lot of factors that go on into getting it up really high. More flavor happens at lower ABVs, lower alcohol out of the still. Less flavor occurs when you distill it up into the 90s. And I think with Crown Royal, they do a variety. So they do some at a lower ABV to get the flavor that they want. And they do some with corn, which has a higher sugar content, up into the 90s to get the base content and the smoothness that they're looking for. And then all of these, I believe, at Crown Royal are aged separately and then blended after the fact. Anyway, so let's taste that now. On the nose, there's a little bit more bourbon and rye notes. So stronger vanilla, And more spice. What else did I write there? I wrote here dark brown sugar as well. So you can smell that for yourself if you go and buy a bottle, okay? Just remember, these are just my notes. Yours may be different, your experience. And everyone's experience matters. So anyway, let's get into the taste with water. So a little more sweetness with that one. Some orange marmalade now is coming into play. And I've written here bigger bourbon vanilla. So a little more vanilla with water is noticed, as well as some typical rye spices of mint, rosemary, and one more for the finish, okay? So here we are. Boy, I can't get over that nose. It's quite nice. All right, cheers once more, everyone, and congratulations to Crown Royal on winning Whiskey of the World award. With water, I find the finish is longer, it's sweeter, you get a little bit more of the mint and herbs from the rye whiskeys, a little bit less peppery, and in fact it's actually drier than without water. So all in all, this is a fantastic whiskey. It does not have an age statement, but apparently it is aged much longer than the minimum of 3 years for Canadian whiskey. And the score for this one, I'm going to give it 82 out of 100. So 82 points out of 100. That's the WhiskyWhistle score for Crown Royal Black Label. And hopefully, if you can find that where you are, go and get some. I think you're going to enjoy that. And stay tuned for more here at WhiskyWhistle. Again, my name is Mark, and you're watching WhiskyWhistle. I hope to see you again very soon. Take care now. Goodbye.